Hey guys, welcome back to my YouTube channel MedEdophilia. Last class we saw about various sense organs, and in today's class let us discuss about the ear. Most of us think the ear's only function is to help us hear, but it's incorrect. Ears perform two sensory functions, which is hearing, which is the primary function. The second one is the maintenance of the body balance and posture. When we observe the ear externally, what we see is the pinna or the auricle, which is an exclusive feature of all mammals. The ear is divided into three parts: the outer, middle, and the inner. The external ear or the outer ear is composed of two parts. First, pinna or auricle. Second, external auditory canal or meatus. The middle ear is composed of three parts: the tympanum or the eardrum, the ear ossicles, malleus, incus, and stapes, and the Eustachian tube. The internal ear is composed of two parts, which is cochlea, which helps in the auditory functions, and the vestibular apparatus, which helps in balancing and maintaining equilibrium. So first let's talk about the outer ear. Pinna, as I mentioned earlier, it's the exclusive feature of all mammals, whereas pinna muscle are vestigial. Pinna is made up of elastic cartilage. The main function of pinna is the collection of sound vibrations in the air. Now these sound vibrations from the air pass on to the external auditory meatus. This external auditory meatus leads inwards and extends up to the tympanic membrane or the eardrum. So there's no specific function for external auditory meatus. It just serves as a canal or a passage for sound to enter and pass. So the moment you hear external ear, the main function corresponds to the collection of vibrations in the air. That becomes the important function. Next, moving on to the middle ear, which is made up of three parts: the tympanic membrane, the eardrum, the ear ossicles, and the Eustachian tubule. So in some books they say the tympanic membrane or the eardrum, or simply tympanum, is the boundary between external and middle ear, while some books include it under the middle ear itself. But in NCERT there is no such specification, so both holds true. The tympanic membrane is composed of connective tissues, and it is covered with two things: skin on the outer side and mucous membrane on the inner side. So you can remember it as SOMI, SOMI. So skin, outer side, mucus, inner side. So there's one small point I missed. The pinna and the meatus, the external auditory meatus or the canal, has fine hairs and wax glands in the skin. So your homework is to find out the function of earwax and the role it plays. Okay, so getting back to the middle ear, we saw about the eardrum, which is composed of connective tissues and it is covered with skin in the outside and mucous membrane in the inside. Next part of the middle ear is the ear ossicles. There are three types of ear ossicles, that is three ear ossicles in each ear. So totally in the human body we have 6 ear ossicles: malleus, incus, and stapes, which are attached to one another in a chain like fashion. So you can remember this as Miss has. So this is a super trick which will help you answer questions. Malleus is hammer shaped, incus is anvil shaped, and stapes is stirrup. Alright. Malleus is attached to the tympanic membrane, whereas the stapes is attached to the inner ear, that is the oval window of the cochlea. The main function of ear ossicles is amplification. They increase the efficiency of the transmission of sound waves to the inner ear. So the main important point over here is that malleus, this sentence which I have highlighted, malleus is attached to the tympanic membrane and the stapes is attached to the oval window of the cochlea. So when I will be drawing this a little later, then you will understand where exactly the oval window is present. Alright, so the next component is the Eustachian tube. Eustachian tube connects the middle ear with the pharynx, especially the nasopharynx, the pharynx which is closest to the nose. The main function of the Eustachian tube is maintaining equilibrium of air pressure. It helps in equalizing the pressure on either sides of the tympanum or the eardrum. So here again the Eustachian tube is made of the elastic cartilage. So where did you before hear this term elastic cartilage? You heard it in the external ear, the pinna. So all three start with the letter E. So easy to remember. So this becomes your trick 3 of today's class. So elastic cartilage is present in the Eustachian tubule and the external ear, which is the pinna. Next we move on to the inner ear, which is the most important of all. Okay. The inner ear is fluid filled and is called the labyrinth. So the inner ear basically is composed of two things. One, it's the cochlea. Second one is the vestibular apparatus. That is one which takes up the auditory function, and the second one which takes up the equilibrium and the balance of the body. So labyrinth is nothing but twisted channels which are filled with a fluid. This labyrinth is of two types, bony labyrinth and membranous labyrinth. Bony labyrinth is filled with a fluid called perilymph and the membranous labyrinth is filled with a fluid called endolymph. So the membranous labyrinth is present within the bony labyrinth, that is inside the bony labyrinth. So this is the labyrinth, which is a twisted channel. Now when you assume it to be straight, this is how it looks like. Here you can see it is divided into three parts: the upper scala vestibuli, the middle scala media or cochlear duct, and the lower scala tympani. Now you can see that the upper and the lowermost chamber is filled with the perilymph, whereas the middle one is filled with the endolymph. So what does that mean? The scala vestibuli and the scala tympani are nothing but the bony labyrinths, whereas the scala media are is a membranous labyrinth, as it is filled with a fluid called endolymph. So the scala media and or the membranous labyrinth is filled with endolymph and is surrounded by a fluid perilymph. So here you can see two special membranes. One is the Resner's membrane and the second is the basilar membrane. The Resner's membrane separates the scala vestibuli and the scala media, whereas the basilar membrane separates the scala media and the scala tympani. So together we can say that the membranes constituting cochlea are the Resner's and basilar membrane, which divide the surrounding perilymph filled bony labyrinth into upper scala vestibuli and a lower scala tympani. So the upper scala vestibuli terminates in the oval window which I talked about earlier, which is also known as fenestra ovalis. So fenestra itself means a window or an opening, and Ovalis here means oval. Simple. Break the words and get the meaning. And the scalar tympani terminates in the round window or the fenestra rotundus. So the scala tympani terminates at the round window which opens to the middle ear. This is extremely important line. So the two important lines are, first one, the upper scala vestibuli terminates at the oval window which is in contact with the stapes of the inner ear, right? Sorry, the middle ear, right? And the lower scala tympani terminates at the round window which opens to the middle ear which is in contact with the eardrum. So in order for you to get this into your mind, let me try to draw this and make things better for you. So here is a beautiful image where everything is at one place so that it's better for you to imagine and visualize. You have the scala vestibuli, you have the cochlear duct or the scala media, you have the organ of Corti and the scala tympani. Now let's look at the organ of Corti in detail. So the organ of Corti is a structure which is located upon the basilar membrane. This basilar membrane, as you can see, it has a number of hair cells. So why hair? I told you in my first lecture while taking nose as the topic. I told you because it has cilia in them. And the kind of cilia present in these hair cells are stereocilia. So in the apex of each hair cell, stereocilia are projected. And the base of each hair cell is in contact with the afferent nerve fiber. Now can you recollect what is an afferent nerve fiber? Afferent, A, what is it? Is it sensory nerve or motor nerve? Yes, it is a sensory nerve. So this is nothing but cranial nerve number 8, which is known as the vestibulocochlear nerve. So what is cranial nerve number 1? It was the olfactory nerve. I told you, right? Cranial nerve, there are 12 pairs of cranial nerve in the human body. So you have to revise the nose topic so that this is going to be really easy for you. You just have to apply the same lines over here and things will be made much easier. Alright, so the cranial nerve number 8, which is vestibulocochlear nerve, is sensory in function. This is the afferent nerve fiber. So the apical part of the hair cell has stereocilia and the basal part of the hair cell is in contact with the afferent nerve fiber. And above the rows of cilia of the hair cells, there lies a thin elastic membrane known as the tactorial membrane. Tactorial membrane is thin and elastic. It's not thick. So remember these descriptions. It's thin and it is elastic. So why is it thin? So that they can move easily when the hair cells vibrate or when there is ripples of sound in the hair cells, which I will be talking about in the mechanism of hearing henceforth. So here again I told you the basilar membrane does not only have the hair cells, there are also supporting cells, right? Just same as the olfactory epithelium, only that the Bowman's gland is not here. So these topics are similar and try to interrelate and study, then you'll never forget. So compare the basilar membrane with the olfactory epithelium or the Schneiderian membrane. Alright, so till now we have seen 3 types of membranes. First one is the Reissner's membrane, second one is the basilar membrane and third is the tectorial membrane. Now let's move on to the mechanism of hearing, which is the process by which the ear converts sound in waves into neural impulses which are sensed and processed by the brain, and hence we recognize a sound. Let's see how this is happening. So first of all, the sound waves in the air is collected by the external ear pinna and it is directed into the eardrum or the tympanum via the external auditory canal. So as a result, the eardrum vibrates in response to the sound waves received, and further they are transmitted to the ear ossicles. So the ear ossicles vibrate and they amplify the sound waves, creates and increases the efficiency of which it is transmitted to the inner ear. Alright, so from the stapes to the oval window, the vibrations are passed on to the fluid of the cochlea where waves are created in the limbs. So first ripples are created in the perilymph and the ripples are then created in the basilar membrane and it vibrates. So the hair cells push against the tectorial membrane and the nerve impulse is creating a depolarization wave in the auditory receptor. So here what is the auditory receptor? It is nothing but the hair cells which are acting as the auditory receptors. So can you tell me why it acts as a receptor? Because a receptor receives the stimuli, receives sound waves and it is transmitting to the brain via a sensory neuron, which is cranial nerve number 8. Okay, now it's the same story. Nerve impulses are generated and they are passed on by the afferent neurons to the auditory cortex of the brain, and here the sound is analyzed and recognized. So this part of the brain is known as the temporal lobe. I'm sorry, it's the temporal lobe of the brain. So here also you tend to get confused between tectorial, temporal and other words starting from T. So make sure that the membrane present, the thin elastic membrane which is present above the hair cells are the tectorial membrane. So alright, so that's the end of the mechanism of hearing. Now we move on to vestibular apparatus, which is responsible for the body balance and equilibrium. Now vestibular apparatus is composed of 3 semicircular canal and the otolith organ. So semicircular canals are 3 in number and they provide dynamic equilibrium. These possess ampulla with projecting ridge called crista, which has a statoreceptors in them. So there are totally 3 ampulla, and this work during angular acceleration or rotation motion, providing a balance. So each of the semicircular canal lies in right angles to each other, hence they are present in different planes. So what is ampulla? Ampulla is the swollen part which forms the base of the canal. This ampulla has a projecting ridge known as the crista ampullaris. This crista ampullaris has statoreceptors, that is, it has the hair cells which act as receptors. So here again there is perilymph which is present in the bony canal, and there is endolymph which is present in the membranous canals. The membranous canals are suspended in the perilymph of the bony canals. So here too there is the same story in which the movement of endolymph bends causes a disturbance of the hair cells and creates a depolarization wave, and again this impulse is passed on to the 8th cranial nerve. So the next part of the vestibular apparatus is the saccule and the utricle. That is the components of the otolith organs. So there are two parts. One is saccule, second one is utricle. So this otolith apparatus provides static equilibrium, and it has macula which has statoreceptor. So here you can compare ampulla with macula. That is, you can compare crista ampullaris with macula. Each of this crista ampullaris and the macula are the specific receptors of the vestibular apparatus, as both of them have hair cells in them. So the crista of semicircular canals and the macula of saccule and utricle, which is the otolith organs, are comparable in the functions because both of them have specific receptors of the vestibular apparatus, which is responsible for maintaining the balance of body and posture. So just like the crista ampullaris, which is the projecting ridge of the ampulla, here again macula is the projecting ridge of the saccule and utricle. So we can compare ampulla with saccule and utricle and crista with macula. So this otolith or apparatus helps in balancing the body during linear acceleration. So semicircular canal was during angular acceleration or rotatory motion, but this is for linear acceleration. Saccule helps in vertical movements and utricle helps in horizontal movements. So this is how the rotational motion as well as linear, that is vertical as well as horizontal motion, the entire motion of the human body is maintained in equilibrium. There is a proper maintenance of the body posture. Okay, so this is how our ear is so versatile, and it is able to perform two main functions of both hearing as well as balance. So this forms the end, and this completes the topic of sense organs. So I'm sure if you have followed my first two lectures, which is the nose, tongue and ear, the third, this one, that is the ear, would have been like much more easier for you to follow, and you would have understood this in the first go itself. So simplify your learning with mededophilia. Make it more enjoyable and interesting for you. Stay tuned. Let's connect soon in the next lesson. Thank you so much.